Welcome. My name is Israel Gross, and I'm a Principal Solutions Advisor at Rocket Software. Today, I want to talk to you about setting thresholds in OMEGAMON, specifically in OMEGAMON for CICS or CICS. However, anything you learn about thresholds in this video can be applied to any other member of the OMEGAMON product family. So what is a threshold? A threshold is a formula applied to a particular field within OMEGAMON such that it either evaluates to true or false. And if it evaluates to true, you can set the state of that field. And setting a state would change the color. So in this example, you could see tran rate is showing up as reverse video red, so is CPU utilization. Yet when you look at any SOS CICS regions, you'll notice that that doesn't show up in reverse video. In fact, it's just plain turquoise like most of the other fields in OMEGAMON. So the first thing to see is the state changes and the color settings. So if you were to go to the E3270 User's Guide and you took a look for status indicators, you would find this page that shows you the different state values, okay or good, warning, critical, idle, highlight, and then unknown, and the colors associated with those particular states. Now, these are default colors. You could change them if you want to, as I'll show you a little later on. But nonetheless, you could see that red is critical, which kind of makes sense. Yellow is warning, green is okay or good. I tend not to use green that often, only for special cases, because if the field is good, I might as well not show it in reverse video and colored. I might as well let it just show up as a plain field in turquoise. On the low end, I tend to use turquoise as a low warning and blue as a low critical type value. You'll notice that it doesn't matter if you use the word idle or unknown, you still get that color by default. Now, at the bottom of the screen, you can also see that there is a way to set status ranges, but if you use the status values specified up here, then that will override any range you set, and therefore I will focus my attention on setting the states of particular fields to change the colors. So let's go back to OMEGAMON. So again, when you're looking at a particular field, now you know you can change the state, whereby you change that state, you'll change the color. I will show you that if you go into Edit and Preferences, you can see the colors that are specified within the OMEGAMON product by default. You can see right here, highlight is set to turquoise. And if you click on the Status tab, you can see the defaults for okay, good, critical, warning, or idle over here. And you're certainly welcome to change them if you don't like them. I'm pretty happy with them, so I'm going to leave that alone. Now, the next thing to figure out is what field you want to apply a formula to and set a state. So when you look at any field within OMEGAMON and you click in that field, if you were to hit PF2, you will get this internal column information pop-up that shows you the column caption, the table column name, which is tran rate, the table itself, KCP Plex, and then the application name. In my example, it's OMCICS. At the bottom, you can see the threshold search field is basically all those appended together, OMCICS.KCPPlex.tran rate. What's also in this little table is where the thresholds live. So you could see the DD name Arcan Par and the member name is KCP Thresh. So the next thing we probably want to look at is where these formulas are housed and what they look like. So to do that, the easiest way is to type in RTE for runtime environment. That will show you the DD name for Arcan Par and then the data sets that are concatenated together to make up that DD. Now you'll notice that the bottommost data set is TCAN Par, that is the product supply defaults, and there's an Arcan Par U, which is where we would have to make our changes because we can't change the product defaults. You'll also notice at the bottom of the screen there's a thresholds tab. If you were to double click that threshold tab and then do a locate for K, everything in OMEGAMON starts with a K, CP for CICS, THRSH, and you hit enter, it will show you that it appears in the bottom of the screen, but it does not appear in the top of the screen. The top of the screen is specifically user members in Arcan PAR-U. So that tells me I do not have a member that anyone has changed yet because there is no member in Arcan PAR-U. So the runtime configuration must be coming out of TCAN PAR, and you'd see the ID is the default ID HKC5560 for the OMEGAMON product. Now, the first thing you need to do is make a copy and put it in Arcan PAR-U. The easiest way to do this is to actually select this member, and I'll just double click it, and then go up to File and do a Save As, and you could save it as the same name, KCP Thresh. No worries, if you hit PF3, what you'll see now is there's a member called KCP Thresh that's sitting in Arcan PAR-U, and you can see the ID and the date and the time that I made the change, and that is my member that I just created. Also at the bottom, you can see the runtime configuration has been updated to say thresholds now come out of this member. Now, rather than edit it through OMEGAMON, I'm going to switch over to TSO over here, and I'm just going to edit the member using TSO edit, and I'll go into this data set, and I'll do a locate for KCP Thresh. And when I find it and I select it, you'll see that there are a bunch of comments at the top. And as I page down through this, I can see what the formulas look like. So here's a particular formula. It says, if OMCICS.KCPplex.tran rate is greater than 1,000 per minute, or the tran rate is less than 100 per minute, then do status. And there you can see the critical, which is why it shows up in red. And obviously there are many formulas within this particular member. Now, I already prepared a member with some changes to show you an example. So I'm going to go back to OMEGAMON for a moment here, hit PF3, and I'm going to go back to my CICS Plex, and what I'm going to do is pick FUW Plex over here. Again, you could see the CPU utilization and the tran rate is also red, and if I click in this particular field and I hit PF2, you'll see the table name has changed. This comes out of the CICS ROV table. So I'm just going to select that name. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go back to TSO. I'm going to do a find on that name, and you can see the formulas that are setting that field to red. It says if the OMCICS ROV CPU util is greater than 90% or less than 5%, then do critical. So since I've already prepared a member, I'm going to go to the top of this. I'm going to delete this entire member and copy in the one I've already created. So I'm going to copy in EJG Thresh. And then I'm going to do the find command for the same CPU util. And you'll see that what I did was I left the initial formula because once you set a threshold, you can override it with a later if statement. So I said, well, let me set everything to red, and then I'll put in additional if statements to change some of the other colors. So you'll see this formula differs from the top formula simply by me adding in an and omcics.kicsrov.kicsapple, so the application name or the Apple ID for CICS, if it's equal to FUW-FWA1, I want to set it to warning, and that's how I changed the color. Now, the first question you may ask is, well, how do I find out all the field names that are available? Well, the easiest way to do this is to go into Tools, and under Tools, you can see ODI for Object Definitions. In there, you will see OMCICS. And within that, you'll see a list of tables, and one of them should be the CICS ROV table. See it right there, and I'll double click it. And these are all the field names available in that table, and so I just used the CICS Apple field right over there, which is just the VTAM Apple ID. So going back over here to the member, you'll see all I added was this particular instruction to say, and if it happens to be this region. Change it to a warning and override what I said before, which was critical. Now you'll notice that the only field that changes color is the first field specified within the if statement. So it's only going to change the state of omcics.kicsrov.CPU util. So now that I've made my change, all I need to do is save this member and then go back to OMEGAMON for CICS. and I'll go back to the screen that showed me all the regions, and I need to do a threshold refresh. I could do tools and click on threshold refresh, which is just a T, or if I know the fast path mechanism, I could do a T.T, hit enter again, and you'll notice that all the colors have changed. So I wanted to show you what all the colors look like. There's red, yellow, green. There's the highlight, reverse video, and it's turquoise. Then there's the dark blue. I also made sure one of my regions had no state associated with it, so you could see that you can actually override a state with no state, which sets it back to what any other field looks like within OMEGAMON. Now I'll just go over here for a second and page down to the no state and show you, you could see good, highlight, idle, and then there it is, no state, and it doesn't really matter what you set the range to, because as long as you set a state, it'll override that. Now I did a threshold refresh. If you run into problems and you notice you're not seeing what you'd like, you can use SDSF, so I'm just gonna switch over to SDSF, and I'm gonna go into my TOM, and put a question mark next to it. And you'll see, in my case, I have 2 sys prints. If you have 2, it's the second one you're interested in. If you select that and you max to the bottom, you will see that there is where I did my threshold refresh. And you could see it didn't just do a refresh for CICS, but it did a refresh for all the OMEGAMON family members that I have installed. And so if you happen to be working with MQ, you can follow all the instructions I've given you till now. You just edit this particular member, and then the threshold refresh will refresh them all. Now I do want to show you one example. If I page up earlier in the day, I put in an error. So you could see this KOBGW0090W, threshold parsing encountered an error in the following statement. I used a status of minor, which I knew didn't exist, and therefore I got a parsing error. And when I went to look at the screen, it didn't fill in the color for that particular region. So if you're running into problems, this is the place that you go to look for those problems. Now, just to show you what these if statements can look like, I went back to the E3270 user guide and showed you the if statements are quite simple to use. It's if application.table.column name, and then you can use whatever operator you like. You can pick a specific value or a range of values, and you can use and or. Then do set the status. Now, again, we've seen good, warning, critical, idle, and highlight, which are all states, and those are the reverse video colors. There's also no state, which is not reverse video, but as you remember, turquoise in color, but not reverse video. Lastly, one other thing to point out is I've been using the member called KCP Thresh. You can actually place a member inside Arcan.PAR-U that matches your user ID, and you could put thresholds in that member. And then the threshold changes that you're creating here will only affect your user ID. The problem with doing that is, number one, it only affects your user ID. And in order to see the changes, you not only need a threshold refresh or a T.T, but you also have to log off of OMEGAMON and then log back on to see that change. So hopefully you'll know a little bit more about setting thresholds. Thank you for watching.